Hi, my name is Sharon Saylor. This is the Scopes Monkey Trial, discussion number 3. In March 1925, the state of Tennessee passed the Butler Act. This act declared it unlawful for any teacher in any of the universities, normal schools, and all other public schools of the state, which are supported in whole or in part by public school funds, to teach any theory that denies the story of the divine creation, and to teach that man has descended from a lower order of animals. Now, the ACLU believed that laws like these were unconstitutional because they sought to use the Bible as a standard of truth in a governmental institution. Now, the ACLU, an organization that said it was dedicated to the freedom of speech of ideas, even extreme ideas, wanted to test the Butler Act, and they advertised in Tennessee newspapers for a Tennessee teacher who was willing to accept their services in testing this law in the courts. A mine operator in Dayton, Tennessee, named George Rapalea, convinced his Scopes to participate. He was hoping that the publicity would bring in money to his mining operation as well as the local economy. Now let's discuss the logistics. The defendant was John Thomas Scopes, a high school math teacher and football coach. Scopes filled in for a sick biology teacher for the last 2 weeks of school, in which the textbook he used taught that man must have been little better than one of the lower animals. He was arrested on May 7, 1925, and charged with teaching the theory of evolution. Now, the attorneys for this case included a famous criminal attorney, Clarence Darrow, and a Democratic 3-time presidential candidate, William Jennings Bryan. Darrow was influenced by his agnostic ideas and believed that my object and my only object was to focus the attention of the country on the program of Mr. Bryan and other fundamentalists in America. Darrow and the ACLU attorney had a twofold strategy: overturn the anti-evolution law and demonstrate the truth of evolution. Bryan, on the other hand, was a strong creationist and a fundamentalist. His objective was to establish the right of taxpayers to control what is taught in their schools and draw a line between teaching evolution as a fact and teaching it as a theory. He had one goal. He wanted to prove that Scopes was guilty of violating the Butler Act. Now, the judge for the case was Judge John T. Ralston, a conservative Christian who started each proceedings with a prayer, as we will see later in a newspaper article. During this case, Judge Ralston cites Clarence Darrow for contempt of court, but then the next day forgives him, citing that he wanted to be the example of Jesus, the man that he believed came into the world and died on the cross. Judge Ralston also allows Bryan to take the stand as an expert on the Bible, but then strikes his testimony the next day when it didn't go very well. Now, the outcome. The trial lasted only 8 days, and Scopes is found guilty and fined $100. However, as far as the long term, the Butler Act and other laws like it become targets of the courts, and fundamentalist ideas will not only be questioned, but even laughable at times. Eventually, the people will see the need to separate religion from science in schools. Now, I chose 4 newspaper articles. The first one I chose, titled Prepare for Thronga Evolution Trial, was written in the New York Times and describes the excitement around Dayton, Tennessee, and how they even had to bring in Pullman cars to house all the visitors that they were going to have. It also describes how students of Scopes was subpoenaed for trial, and even had a quote from Scopes saying that he was fighting for a principle, one of the greatest, that of freedom of thought, and how he is ready to fight and, if need be, die for that which he conceives to be right. The second article is from the Washington Times, and it gives the actual prayer, the contentious prayer that was used for the opening court proceedings. It was given by Reverend A.C. Stribling, a pastor of the Cumberland Presbyterian Church, and it started off saying, "Our Father, to thee we give all the praise for every good thing," and then later went on to reference the great creator of the world. Now, the third and fourth ones I referenced describe Scopes' personal views towards evolution and how any man of science must believe that man and anthropoid apes may come from a parent stem, but not that one descended from another necessarily. The last article explains how the United States Federal Court in Knoxville had no plans for any monkey business to occur in the federal courts, and how the case would not be transferred to the higher court as far as the attorneys knew. Thank you.